What is up, guys? Welcome to this video. In this one, I'm going to be telling you 10 characteristics of self-actualization. Now, this video is going to be insanely important for anyone who wants to reach their full potential, who's interested in serious personal growth, who wants to be very authentic in their life, anyone who wants to feel very good, have a lot of high quality emotions guiding them throughout their life. Now, self-actualization is a topic that I like to talk about a lot on my channel, and this video is going to basically outline 10 very important points that are associated with it. Now, the first point that I've already written down is truth-seeking. Now, this is an extremely complicated point, and probably the most complicated one that there is, because the truth about, let's say, human nature, or society, or reality, or existence. These are all very complicated things, and we have a lot of beliefs about them that get in the way of the truth. And seeking the truth is not like a 2 + 2 = 4, and then bam, we have the answer kind of thing. But it's more so an actual ongoing orientation towards life and something that a person genuinely loves. It's like falling in love with truth and consciousness and clarity and an ability, basically falling in love with the ability to discover what is true. And a lot of what is true in our world is not as fixed as we like to believe it is, like a 2 + 2 = 4, and bam, done, wrap it up, that's it. But a lot of the things that are true are very dependent upon contexts, situations, what the situation is. It's very dependent upon the observer and who's looking at it and what their level of development is. And I want to talk about this idea of levels of development very quickly. Now, some of the lowest levels of development have a lot to do with fulfilling a person's basic survival needs. And as we climb up this developmental ladder, we begin to transcend our survival needs. And we move into what is called being needs, which is where self-actualization comes in. And only until you are at these higher stages of development that I'm talking about can you really begin to seek truth in an honest way that is beginning to be unclouded by the biases that you have in your mind that have helped you to survive. Because as humans, our minds don't automatically care about truth from birth. We care more about survival, fitting in, feeling safe, feeling connection, getting food, things like this, getting acceptance, making money, things like this, which are all great things. But our desire for truth has to be put above all of that, which is a rare thing. Most people are actually not at a stage of development where they can really care about truth. And what we call truth is actually just defending our beliefs. We kind of have this assumption that my worldview is the right one, that it's science or religion, it's liberal or conservative, it's me and not the other, not them. And this just is bullshit. This whole orientation of struggling and fighting against various worldviews just doesn't work if what you care about is truth, because this is an impulse associated with survival and wanting to preserve oneself, one's beliefs, one's self-concept, one's identity, one's sense of who they are, rather than truth. Because the truth is very radical. The truth is going to destroy much of what you believe you are, what you believe the world is. Because when you think about it, the truth about, let's say, the biggest question there is about what reality is, this has got to be something just really effed up. Like something that would just like blow your mind to the point where it's like, how the hell can it even be that? Like, we're talking about the most radical thing that exists, reality, and like how it came to be, what it is, why. So it's a very wise thing to first begin to realize that your beliefs about how and why and where it came from and what it is are probably wrong, because this thing called reality is absolutely massive relative to humans. It's very mysterious. We have basically no idea what's out there. We have no idea what's out there. We don't even know really what's going on here. It's very chaotic. A lot of what goes on around us is very dependent upon the environment, the situations, the context. Even a lot of our scientific knowledge is very dependent upon the context that we discover the facts in. The observer actually also affects what is observed. So it seems like a lot of these things are very entangled. Like me and the scientific fact, for example, are entangled. That it's almost like it's impossible for me to just view something neutrally without having an effect on it. And that in order to get what is true, I must also examine my own biases, my own goals, my own needs, my own wants, my own purpose, my own emotions, my own orientation and relationship to life. Because truth seeking is happening in all categories of life. Truth in our relationships, truth in our emotions, being honest to ourselves about what we feel and why we feel it, where it's coming from, and, being able to work through it and see it clearly. It's being honest about our beliefs and what we think, and that they are beliefs and that they are assumptions and that we don't actually know. It's being honest about whether or not we can even use science, for example, to discover what is the case about reality. Because how do we know that by using science we'll just discover what reality most fundamentally is? How do we know that? We haven't actually done it yet. And I'm not saying that we should stop using science. I'm just saying that, is it possible that there's actually other methods as well that can give us valid knowledge about reality that science is not giving us? So science is a method, and there's a lot of other methods as well that are very valuable. So truth-seeking is a very broad thing. It's basically, I will leave no stone unturned. I will check Buddhism. I will check the various forms of Christianity. I will check science. I will check spirituality. I will check meditation. I will check psychology, and I'll check altered states of consciousness, and I'll check this book, and I'll check that book. I'll check capitalism, I'll check communism, I'll check this. So basically what is beginning to happen is that our worldview is beginning to notice that each worldview, science, religion, blah, 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 are all paradigms that are used to look, that we use to look at reality with. It's almost like a pair of glasses that you put on the science glasses, and now everything is science. It's all atoms and molecules, it's mechanistic. Okay. You put on the systems thinking glasses, now everything is wholes and a relationship between the wholes and the parts and the relationship between the parts. You put on a religious perspective, now it's more mystical, more, whatever it is. you get the point, I hope. But these are paradigms that we look at reality with, and they aren't just this sort of innocent thing that doesn't have an effect on our results and our worldviews. They are actually interconnected with the observed phenomena, the thing that we're trying to uncover. So truth-seeking is a whole orientation towards life that is very complicated, and actually transcends our survival needs. So you have to care about the truth more than you care about surviving as your current self, actually. You have to be willing to obliterate all your beliefs and all your biases and all your ways to avoid and distract yourself from even your emotions, even certain thoughts. Because our emotions are actually also very interconnected with our ability to care about truth. The desire for truth is a very emotional thing. It's very, very rooted in us when we, get to high enough levels of development. It's just, there's a passion for it that emerges. And there needs to be a lot of honesty when it comes to seeking truth, a lot of self-honesty. Because if you just defend science, for example, and that you think, oh, just science is the truth, newsflash, science has been wrong throughout history over and over and over and over again. There's been a lot of errors. There's been a lot of changes. So to think that that's not going to happen again is very foolish, actually, and just short-sighted and very ignorant of what the hell's been happening for the last, however many years. So to think that our current methods and our current ways are just sufficient, and that, we just got to do more science, or we just got to vote for my political party, or we just got to all support my religion, it's naive to really think that this is just the way to truth. It's not about truth. It's about preserving a set of beliefs, preserving a set of values, preserving a specific worldview. And this basically really takes on a life of its own inside of a person's psyche. So truth-seeking has a lot to do with abandoning loyalty to specific groups, ideologies, beliefs, and basically being open enough to basically go into any worldview, look at it, accept it, and then jump to another one and another one. Just like putting on one pair of glasses, taking them off, putting on a new pair of glasses, taking them off. So it's almost like water. You're able to pour water into one cup and then pour water into another cup. And water has no resistance to this. And that's kind of how your mind has to become. It has to become this fluid, dynamic, changing thing as contexts change. So you have to change your mind as situations change, new information is revealed, new environments are discovered, new variables in the environment are discovered. You have to think about the relationships between them. It's very complicated. It's very, very complicated. Seeking truth is not some sort of simple thing like, I kind of already know what the truth is. I know how society works. I know how reality works. I know how human nature works. Actually, in 400 years, we're going to have very radically different views on all these things. So it would be wise for you to admit that you have no goddamn idea how any of this works. It's all very confusing, and you need help. You got to read a lot of books from insanely intelligent people of every tradition. You need more perspective. You need more work on your emotions and your mind. It has to be rewired. It's got to be a massive process, really. So truth-seeking is probably one of the most complicated ones here. Moving on, I will go to acceptance. Acceptance. Now, this means that you accept yourself fully. You don't repress certain parts of yourself, struggle against yourself, shame yourself, and that your actual acceptance of yourself and other people is very full, really. It's almost like a complete and total acceptance of what's happening in the moment. Your feelings, your state, your belief, your situation in life, your just moment-to-moment experience of who you are and who other people around you are. And this is a radical thing because this is something that doesn't come automatically in life. This is something that has to be worked towards. In a sense, it has to be worked towards. It does have to be worked towards until it becomes automatic for a person. But it's a skill, actually, that has to be developed. And it has effects on your emotions, your relationships, your ability to seek truth, on your creative habits, your poorer habits. So self-acceptance has a lot to do with self-actualization, because self-actualized people aren't full of unconscious and repressed shame and guilt, so they don't shame themselves and shame other people as much, or basically little to nothing, really. Moving on, another important point is purpose. Purpose being huge. I feel a great responsibility and duty to accomplish a particular mission in life. And this mission is usually something that is fairly big picture. It doesn't really have to be big picture, but it has a lot to do with the core sense of who you are and also your personal authenticity and with truth. So it's also, you'll notice that these characteristics are all going to go together because this is all under the category of self-actualization. So all of these characteristics are going to have interesting relationships to one another. So purpose is not separate from acceptance or truth-seeking, and none of these are going to be separate from any of the other categories that I talk about, or any of the other points that I talk about throughout this video. So purpose has a lot to do with discovering what is authentic for you to be doing that, it works with your personality type, it works with your life experiences, it works with your preferences, and what makes your heart jump. For example, me, I love reading books, and I remember when I stumbled upon humanistic psychology, Abraham Maslow, Scott Barry Kaufman, Eric Fromm, Rollo May, Carl Rogers. Reading their books, my heart would explode because it was just so beautiful. It was like poetic, but scientific, and also like adventurous and so full of life and creativity and soul. There was just a soul behind it that you could sense from their writing. It wasn't this sort of cold science. It was just like a desire and a love for human nature and what makes a healthy human. Moving on, I'm going to erase all this. Point number 4 is authenticity. Authenticity. So notice how this relates a lot to purpose and acceptance, because you can't really have authenticity without them. This basically means that you can maintain your dignity, your integrity, at times where it can even be difficult. And it has a lot to do with getting your needs met. So we feel very authentic when we feel connected to the people around us, when we are healthy, when we are feeling good. That's when we feel most authentic. Whereas the opposite of that is when we're feeling bad, or we're angry and we're forceful towards people and we're struggling in some way. That's not really our authentic self. You can think that it is, but actually it isn't. These are mechanisms that you're using to defend yourself. It's a survival-based sort of perception, survival-based habit. Whereas our authentic self is actually beyond survival. It's not something just merely in survival mode. It's something that is more fundamental to our actual sense of who we are, almost like a child, like the spontaneousness, the curiosity, the wonder, the creativity, all this stuff. These are all natural and authentic to humans, but we have a lot of different circumstances, so it's very difficult, and we have a lot of delusions around what authenticity is. So when a person gets their needs met, when they have the food they need, the sex they need, the shelter they need, the connections they need, the relationships, the self-esteem they need, they care about the people around them. When they have enough of this and they move on to self-actualization, they begin to actually feel very authentic. They begin to go through their emotional traumas that they've been holding in, their emotional blocks, their beliefs, their biases. They can let a lot of these survival defense mechanisms go, and that childlike wonder and curiosity and creativity comes back, because it never went anywhere. Our most authentic self isn't some sort of like hippy-dippy new agey idea, but it's actually more so a series of patterns within you that make you feel the best and are the healthiest form of expression for you. And there's similar patterns that humans go down when it comes to authenticity. Like, authenticity doesn't involve fighting someone or struggling against someone. These are ways of forcing and manipulating that aren't authentic. Authenticity has a lot to do with truth and honesty, because authenticity is who you truly are. And it has nothing to do with forcing yourself on people or manipulating people, screaming at them or using anger to get things that you want. This is inauthenticity, and that's why this kind of stuff feels so painful. Whereas when you're authentic, when you feel close to the people you love, when you feel like you care for humanity, like you're serving a higher purpose, like you're doing what really matters to you, and you feel connected to the present moment and yourself and your life and your emotions and the people around you, of course, when you have these needs met, and you care about learning, you really care about truth, and there's just a sense, there's a sense inside of you of this is healthy. It's like a subjective sense of well-being, and that plays a massive part in authenticity. That's actually a sign that what you're doing is proper. It's what you should be doing. This sort of subjective sense of well-being, this healthy sense of well-being, not just like a mindless pleasure. Like you watch some porn and you feel good or something, or you eat a bunch of junk food. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean like a pleasure that is connecting you with life, like a creative habit, painting, or spending time with loved ones, or if you love the job you do, basically anything that begins to make you feel as though you and your environment and all of life are one thing, and that you cannot be separated from each other. Any sense of merging with reality is steps towards authenticity. And senses of separateness from other people, that's why I talked about anger and force and manipulation. These all imply a strong degree or a strong sense of separateness. These things are inauthentic. And you can't really follow that like some moral code, like some 10 commandments. Authenticity is very fluid, very flexible. It's dynamic. It's adapting to the context. It's adapting to what you need, adapting to what you feel, what you think, what you know, what you don't know. So that's massive. The next one is appreciation. And this is like a continued freshness or continued perception that is fresh, which almost like a child has. Once again, notice how that relates to authenticity and all the other points I've been talking about, truth-seeking, stuff like that. It's like a perception that is fresh, like you're seeing the world for the first time. In May, I was at a fireworks show, and I watched this toddler, maybe 3 years old, pick up a pine cone and just looked at it in wonder. And I'm looking at this kid, I'm like, he gets it. And what I mean by that is that when he's holding that pine cone, he's not thinking, this is a pine cone, and it's like a dull thing. He's not even thinking really the word pine cone. He's just there holding it, feeling it, looking at it, just with the perception and the raw experience of it. And then I watch him just throw it away and like stumble on very spontaneously. And I'm like, this guy is just very connected to life. There's a spontaneous, natural flow that he's very in sync with and connected to because, well, for a lot of reasons. But children have this fresh perception that adults usually don't have because we've been filled up with so many ideas and beliefs because, we have to survive. So that begins to fade away, apparently fades away, as we have to worry more about making money, getting the things we need to survive, building up defense mechanisms in our mind and our emotions in order to get the things that we want. And once again, as a person begins to go beyond survival, these qualities come back, but they're integrated also with being able to function in society. So it's not like you're a stupid child again. It's more like you were, let's say, in the Garden of Eden. You were banished from the Garden of Eden, and then you went on a massive journey, and then you came back to the Garden of Eden. And it's not that, you lose all the memories and the stuff you learned while you were out of the Garden of Eden. It's that is still there. It's just now you're back in paradise. You still have all the lessons and all that kind of stuff. So to clarify a little more, it's like you were kind of, you were a child, you were very wondrous, spontaneous, and you were shocked by things. You were traumatized by things. The human psyche kind of just traumatizes itself. And we were overwhelmed. We needed things to survive. We didn't know how to get them. We were scared. And we had to basically create a lot of defenses, psychological and emotional defenses, in order to get things that we want. We have like physiological defense, really, or like, physical defense, like a fight. But we also have the same thing with our mind and our emotions. And these block out authenticity, appreciation, truth-seeking. And it's all these defenses, all these shells, and this massive sense of separateness from reality that we shed, which then creates the possibility of really achieving one's full potential and really self-actualizing and really enjoying life to the best that you can. So this freshness of appreciation, this perception of freshness, really, it's like you can look at mundane things, like a child looking at a pine cone, and just be in awe that this is here, that there's an experience happening, without needing to think that you understand it. Like, I'm a kid, or it's a kid looking at a pine cone, and we know what all this stuff is, and it's all figured out in my mind. No. It's just sitting there with the raw perception and just a sense of awe, wonder, and curiousness, and mysteriousness, and not knowing. And this is actually the more accurate perception that really begins to happen when people self-actualize. Self-actualized people love the unknown. Self-actualized people really, they don't want to cover up the unknown with the things that they apparently know. Self-actualized people love to appreciate the unknown, and they aren't very scared by it. They are more tolerant of ambiguity. Whereas people who are more in survival, they hate the unknown. It's threatening to them. They don't know what it is. It could be dangerous. And basically, a child is very connected to the unknown because it hasn't been filled up with a bunch of beliefs and ideas and defense mechanisms yet. So, in summary of appreciation, this has a lot to do with being able to just look at mundane things, even extraordinary things. But I like pointing out the mundane because we take it for granted. It's being able to look at your pillow at night and just be in awe. Just look at it. Don't call it a pillow. Don't think, pillow. You project your mental construct onto the experience. You just remain with the experience. Bring awareness into your body. Let yourself just be in a state of ease. Release tension. Just stay there. Just stay with the experience. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to label it. Just remaining with feeling, seeing, hearing. So this basically creates this new perception that is distinct from thinking, that creates the sense of freshness and basically appreciation. Because when you think you already know what all this stuff is, it seems very boring. It's just a pillow, it's just a water bottle, it's just a YouTube video. It seems very boring and mundane. But when you begin to remove your beliefs about what all this stuff is, the possibility of getting something new and more truthful, more accurate emerges. Whereas when you believe you already know what this stuff is, now there's nothing to be questioned because you're certain about what it all is, really. Moving on. The next one is peak experiences. Self-actualized people can tend to have a lot more peak experiences. That's going across the whole board. So, peak experiences also relate to how open you are, open-minded, and also emotionally pure you are, emotionally open that you are. So, self-actualized people, they don't really defend themselves as much. They're more open to life, open to the flow of life. They're more sort of Taoist. They like to go with the most natural and authentic flow that life is guiding them in. It's not this like hippy-dippy thing. It's very real once you get to higher stages of development. But because they're sensitive to life, they're sensitive to the natural flow, they're sensitive to their body and what is authentic and what is inauthentic, they're more aware of these things and they care more about these things, they tend to have more peak experiences. They tend to have altered states of consciousness, different emotional experiences, openings in their body, like emotional releases, because our trauma is stored in our body. We tense up a lot. Our emotions get stored in our muscles, in our tissues, organs, things like this. And it doesn't go anywhere. Whereas people, self-actualized people, investigate a lot of these things, they let them go, and they tend to have a lot more peak experiences, like feeling one with life, feeling connected to life, feeling extremely, feeling like you're merging with some other thing, like you're merging with your lover, or you're merging with nature when you go for a walk. They have these kinds of existential peak experiences that bring a lot of clarity, new perspectives, a sense of wonder and mystery, a sense of almost like mysticism as well. There's an Albert Einstein quote, who's a very self-actualized guy. It's something along these lines. It's like the most wonderful emotion we can experience is the mystical, which clearly relates to peak experiences. Moving on. I gotta erase all this again. Impermanence. 7. Did I do 7? 7, 8, 9. And 10. Okay. 7. No. I didn't do 7. 7 is humanitarian. Yeah, humanitarian. Yep. So this one relates to having a genuine desire to alleviate human suffering. And it's not in this sort of bleeding heart way, where you want to run in like Superman and save everyone. But self-actualized people, they care about something like systems thinking. They're very complex thinkers. They're not just fools who like to talk about creativity and love and wonder and the mystical, all this kind of stuff. But they're very intelligent. They also have a lot of nuanced perspectives. They're less dogmatic and ideological. They're more open-minded. They are systemic thinkers. They are great problem solvers as well. They're very practical. They know how to get results done. They are very extraordinary people. A lot more flexible than your average man. They're almost like superhuman. But they're superhuman, you know, with it's a bit complicated. but maybe another video I'll explain that. So this has a lot to do with wanting to create better systems, and not in an ignorant way, but in a grounded way that includes everyone. So it's not like you want to change everything, you know, to serve my idea of what mankind should be, but it's what will really help people. What do people actually need in order to feel good? Because remember, self-actualization is post-survival, really. It's moving beyond survival. So it's not so much about what do I need, it's more about like, what do people also need? Like, what does this person need, this whole group of people need, so they can feel secure and safe, and then eventually grow if they desire. So human psychological growth and human development actually works to alleviate conflict, alleviate suffering. And self-actualized people are fantastic at identifying how to create more conscious systems in mankind in a calculated way that is not forceful and is very gentle. So you're not going in and you're changing everything like erratically because, you know, the system is terrible, bro. You know, F the system. You know, it's really not that kind of approach. It's more of an approach of respect, gratitude as well, being very gentle, careful, detached, non-needy, being very careful really in your approach. It's all about being also very strategic. Like, if I change this, what are the consequences of that? What is it going to affect? Because everything is very interconnected in the worldview of a self-actualized person. These seemingly separate things, like let's say healthcare and education, they aren't as separate as we tend to think. We like to draw very strong boundaries between things, and when you get to a more self-actualized level of development, the boundaries between yourself and other, between yourself and your neighbor, between science and spirituality, like these begin to break down, and self-actualized people can create very fantastic connections between seemingly opposite things. That's kind of like the yin-yang symbol, the Taoist symbol. It's like the duality, the two different sides are actually one. They're in one sort of they're connected to each other really. They're inseparable from each other. So the desire to alleviate human suffering is not like this bleeding heart wanting to be a superhero and like get all the glory. It's more about how do we make a conscious world. A great example would be Sadhguru, Sadhguru. He would be a fantastic example. Him and Save Soil would be a great example of self-actualized humanitarianism. There's a lot of other examples, and they don't have to be so like big picture, like that. They can be even more apparently mundane. Like developmental psychologists also really care about helping mankind. So what do a lot of them do? They create models of how humans develop so that we can better understand why people vote for the party that they vote for, why cultures are the way they are, why people are scientific, why people are more religious. So why people care about self-actualization, why others don't, why people are drug dealers. So the humanitarian aspect has a lot to do with strategically alleviating suffering rather than going in like a raging, it's not this forceful ideological approach. It's very laid back. It's also very grounded. It cares about the security of people, and it doesn't want to just shake up people's sense of safety and security. It wants to make slow and effective change because people grow slowly, and self-actualized people care about other people. So they want to make slow and effective change that people are comfortable with. So the desire to help the human race is not coming from a forceful place, but coming from a place of detachment and a sense of love and appreciation for how things presently are, but it's also not ignorant of the problems and the direction that we have to be moving in. Moving on, you have moral intuition. This one is not related to like moral ideologies like the Ten Commandments or anything like that. It has more to do with being able to sense whether or not what you're doing is aligned with the highest good of humanity or not. It has a lot to do with what I'm doing healthy? Is what I'm doing helpful? Is what I'm doing hurting people? And it's not afraid to apply this to something like work. a lot of jobs, for example, are benefiting off human addiction and suffering. Social media is a good example. The food industry is a massive example. So it gets very practical and personal with this. It's like, how are the actions that I'm doing, how I'm making money, how I'm surviving, affecting the people around me? Am I actually relating to the people around me in an effective enough way to be able to get along with them and understand them? And it has a lot to do with also not being attached to a rigid set of right and wrong, but it's more adaptive to context. So in one situation, you can do something and it can be good. And then in another situation, you do something and it's bad. So the good moral intuition has a lot to do with, is what I'm doing authentic? Is what I'm doing healthy? Is what I'm doing creating suffering? Is what I'm doing hurting people? And it's really applying this to all their actions, really. Like when you buy something off, let's say Amazon, I think like, some guy has had to, spend his day in the factory. Like it's not just like an innocent thing. It's like I'm using a surface that can potentially harm people, and I am supporting that. I'm giving them my money. When I'm buying clothes, where are they made? Things like that. So it's very like you apply it to your life, and you want to see where you are actually contributing to human suffering, and you want to actually seek to change that. And not just humans, but also the planet, any living creature, suffering in general. Moving on. Creative spirit. This one's going all across the board again. So you guys can see it says creative spirit. So you can watch my video. It's titled Why Most Adults Are Not Creative. That's a fantastic video for understanding more about the creative spirit in depth. But this video, I'm going to just explain it somewhat quickly. So this doesn't have to do with just being a good painter or being a good musician, but it has a lot to do with how you also express yourself. Is the way I'm expressing myself authentic? And, there's only one of you. So by definition, if you are being authentic and 100% naturally you, it's a creative thing. That's the creative spirit. And this thing touches everything that you do. The way you walk, talk, relate, make a video, your gestures, things like this. The way that you look someone in the eyes. This all comes into play. It's a very practical thing. It's like the way that you go about living life. Self-actualized people can be very charismatic because they have this sort of light, childlike aspect to them, playful-like aspect to them, which is associated with the whole creative spirit. Moving on, the final point that I'm going to be talking about, well, the main point, I got a bit more after, is number 10, equanimity. Equanimity. This has a lot to do with taking the inevitable ups and downs of life with a sense of grace and acceptance, and not struggling against life, not struggling against situations. They're more accepting to life and the natural flow of life. They're more accepting of the present moment. And this is absolutely massive because this relates to the clearing of emotional trauma and stored emotions in our body. And as we purify ourselves of the sort of stored emotional baggage, we become a lot more full of equanimity. We become more accepting. We become more loving, more light, spontaneous, carefree in a sense as well. Not this sort of anything goes attitude. It's integrated with being able to be disciplined and also being carefree. Because for the self-actualized person, the distinction between work and play begins to crumble. The boundary separating them begins to crumble. So that work becomes play. Being carefree is also integrated with all these other self-actualized principles. The way that they live their life is a lot more connected to the natural flow. So they take life's ups and downs with a lot more grace. They're more accepting of the bad and they're more accepting of the good. They don't demonize the evil and the bad. They are more accepting of it and more understanding towards it. So that is a lot of the qualities of self-actualization and self-actualized people. Some others are a greater sense of well-being, caring about health, even a greater report of their subjective sense of well-being, greater life satisfaction, greater curiosity. So I'm very intellectually curious. I like to read lots of books on a lot of different subjects. I have so many various traditions in here: Zen, politics, science, and different branches of it. I have physics, biology, chemistry, neuroscience, psychology, and for politics I have conservative worldviews, liberal worldviews. I have capitalism, communism. I have for religion, Buddhism and various branches of Buddhism, Zen, stuff like that. I have Hinduism, Jainism, Judaism, Christianity, New Age. I'm very intellectually curious. I have developmental psychology. I have humanistic psychology. I have a lot of stuff. So curiosity is massive. I talked about self-acceptance. Courage is massive. Being very playful. That creative spirit, that childlike innocence begins to come back. Positive relationships. So self-actualized people are more loving of themselves and others. They're less serious. They don't. They're very light. They're not like, they're a lot more light and graceful in the way that they sort of behave and live life. They're not. They're less emotionally disturbed by things as well. They tend to be more healed and whole and integrated and healthy. Environmental mastery. They're very skilled with, being able to set up the environment in a way that fosters growth, things like this, that helps people and themselves. Personal growth, autonomy, high amounts of skills and talents in a wide range of fields. So art, to science, to business, to sports, to public speaking, to this, to that. They're very talented actually in a lot of different domains. You don't have to be a singer and like a fantastic jazz musician and a pro soccer player to be self-actualized. But for example, my intellectual curiosity with various fields, that is a lot. It's like you've basically accumulated a lot of information from various sources, various fields, various perspectives. Kind of like Wikipedia. Wikipedia is like this hive mind of information. You can find a lot of stuff. You can find history. You can find religion, conspiracy theories. You can find information on famous people. You can find, who made the bicycle. You can find the origins of capitalism. You can find Genghis Khan. You can find the Roman Empire and Marcus Aurelius. You could it's just all of these really all over the place ideas, and they're just all in one place. And the self-actualized mind can bridge gaps between them and make sense of all of this. It can organize this information into a way that is cohesive and makes sense. Moving on, they have a more detached awareness. They aren't very judgmental, not very forceful. They're more detached, easygoing, and loving. They have an expanded sense of identity, so they care about the animals, the bugs, the people of all cultures, themselves. They have a very expanded and global sense and really universal sense of identity. If aliens came, the self-actualized people would not want to rob them and take their stuff. They'd probably love to, just connect with them. There's a greater sense of oneness with everything in the universe. Perspective taking, they're very open-minded. They will read books from everything. They're very great at taking the perspective of basically anyone and really going into the worldview effortlessly. And lastly, they are growth-minded. They like to make positive change. They like to grow and expand in ways that psychologically evolve themselves and the people around them, and they are very, very passionate about it. But they're not like a hard ass about it. They're very spontaneous about it, and it's done in a very healthy way. It's not this sort of hustle culture growth mindedness. It's this sort of laid back sort of approach where it's more, when you have to be firm, you're firm. When you can be laid back, you're laid back. When you have to read the books, you read the books. When you have to go exercise, you exercise. When you need rest, you need rest. So they're adaptive to context, and a lot of their sort of outlook revolves around wanting to grow and expand themselves. So that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Other than that, take it easy.